Welcome to No Way But North, where we talk about the miracles of recovery and the tools used to achieve them. My name is Cooper Lyons. My clean date is November 27th, 2010. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Big Jon Meldrum.
Big John in the
Not
building.
as always, though. As you can tell, we finally made the jump to video. We're really excited. We're going to get this going, hopefully trying to reach as many people as possible on as many platforms as possible. If you've been joining us since the first episode that was really horrendous because it was in an office in our administration building, and I didn't know what I was doing with audio at all. And
Wasn't the break room?
No, it was... it was Janice's office. Now Autumn's our head of human
HR.
resources office. It was not pretty. But we're finally on this platform. We finally kind of upgraded our equipment. We know what we're doing, and we're really excited to start spreading the message of recovery, the miracles of recovery, and the tools used to achieve them.
I mean, that's what we do.
That's exactly what we're here for.
That's what North Point is all about, you know? Reconnecting families and rebuilding relationships. You know what I'm saying?
Ding, ding. Perfect. Guys, so if you're just joining us, however, on the YouTube platform, the video platform, we are the co-hosts of No Way But North. Like I said, my name is Cooper Lyons. I have 8 years in recovery, and then Big Jon Meldrum is a primary counselor now at North Point. He's been bouncing back and forth between Ashwood and North Point. And we kind of do this, and we're really here to talk about the miracles of recovery and the tools used to achieve them. So every other episode is either a story of recovery. So we might be talking about alumni. We might be talking to some of our staff that are in recovery themselves. We'll kind of have a focus for that episode, I know we'll be talking about Evan Beals later today. We're going to be talking about trying to improve yourself every single day, stuff like that. And then do you want to talk about the clinical episodes and kind of the purpose of that?
Yeah, so a big thing that we're going to be doing with the clinical episodes is we're going to be getting some clinical expertise from some of our counselors, LMSWs, CEDCs, people with different types of licenses and different types of certifications and things of that nature. So anything from codependency to ADHD within children and how that affects drug use in early childhood and stuff like that. So yeah, we got topics for days, bro.
Yeah, well, it's such a broad field, right? It affects so many different areas of life and industries and all kinds of stuff. So I don't think we'll be running out of content anytime soon.
Well, I mean, if we do, they can just stare at me.
Yeah, because that'll go well. Yeah, now you guys can finally see us. That's our gift to you.
Feels good. Feels real good.
So guys, the one other thing we want to talk about before we kind of get into talking about me and Jon, so you guys can get to know us a little bit better, is that we really are trying to spread a message of recovery, whether that's through the clinical episodes or through sharing some stories of recovery. So we really want to encourage you to just tell one person. If you think that they're struggling with addiction, if you think that they'll benefit from hearing what we're talking about here, just tell them to check it out. No Way But North. That's all you have to search on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, pretty much any platform that allows podcasting of any kind. We're on it. So just tell one person, leave us a review on those places so that more people can see us, and we'd really appreciate it. All right, guys, we're going to get into it. We're just going to kind of basically interview each other so you guys can know what we're about, who we are, what kind of things we've experienced, and why we're on this podcast, why we were chosen to be the co-hosts other than the obvious.
The beard's looking good today, Cooper.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I got it touched up right before.
I see you.
All right, buddy. So I know we actually did a pretty in-depth episode with you already. I believe it was episode 5, right before you were a co-host.
Yeah. So we did one. We did 2. We've done 2.
Second one was talking about
mental health within athletics.
With athletes, you're right. We did talk about that in depth. So I know the first one was number 5. I'm not sure.
I want to say that one was like 8 or 9.
Something like that. They're pretty back to back. But that was back when, you weren't the co-host yet. And the other one we talked about boundaries, right? Because your mom is in recovery currently. You grew up with her kind of going in and out of recovery, in and out of jail and prison, raised by your grandparents a lot. And that's had a lasting effect on you, not only kind of how you went through college and how your career has gone, but like your relationships, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, not to recap the whole thing, but yeah, definitely being raised by an addict or having an addict within my life, definitely gives you a different perspective on what things look like. And so a lot of the growth, a lot of the experience that I've had has come from the things that I've had to persevere throughout with my relationship with not only my mother but also my grandfather and my grandmother, and it's definitely made me the man I am today, for sure.
Yeah, well, facing adversity like that from basically the time you're born, right?
Yeah.
Kind of forces you to either roll over or stand up and
Yeah.
persevere, right?
Yeah, and I mean, relationship is good and healthy now, but we still have our moments and stuff like that. But like, for the most part, everybody's healthy and clean. And
That's a good start.
that's where things really kind of take off. But we take it day to day, just like anybody else would.
Yeah, I will say that I do look to you from time to time, because me and my mom have had a rocky relationship with a lot of the same kind of stuff. Not as intense by any means, but the way that you're able to keep boundaries is pretty impressive to me. Like you really are intentional about the boundaries you set, and when you're getting upset or something's bothering you, you do what you need to do to handle it and still maintain the relationship.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you have to. I mean, anybody really is, that's what we teach here is, right, healthy boundaries. And so for me, I have to be very careful with how I engage and how I interact with people based off of just my overall well-being, right? Because, like, if I let people get into, my head, and especially with my mom and things like that, like, I will get angry super fast, and
and moms especially know how to push those buttons.
Push buttons like hell. So, yeah, mom's a pro at that one.
Okay, so then did any of that transfer into athletics? Because and those of you that don't know, Jon was a starting offensive lineman at Syracuse University, 1940 to
Oh,
1944.
You're hilarious. I'm sorry, Buster. No, 2007 to 2010 until I got hurt. So, I mean, definitely, I would say a little bit. I was still pretty fairly young during those days, so I really didn't know how to manage emotions and set boundaries and communicate those emotions and stuff like that. A lot of the things that I experienced, especially like with my own mental health during my playing career, was hectic and chaotic just because I didn't know what to do. A lot of my boundaries and understanding came after I left college and stuff like that.
So kind of hindsight's 20/20 deal.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can look back at different situations and understand it more clearly now compared to what I did then. If I would have had the knowledge then, I probably would have reacted vastly different. But
as always, right?
Yeah, as always.
Life.
But it is what it is, and my experience from the prison system and that whole thing, and now within counseling and doing family dynamics and education on that, gives you a different perspective on everything, for sure. So
yeah, well, and I mean, different perspective, but I like that you actually apply it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a ton of counselors out there that it's easier to give advice than to take advice and apply
absolutely.
it. So to like give out that advice, but then also do your best to really apply it to your relationships, your life, your perspectives.
Yeah, and I won't say I'm a pro by any means, but yeah,
I know that you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still have my struggles, but for the most part, it's the things that I teach, especially within family dynamics and kind of understanding. One thing that every counselor that messes with addiction gets is like, are you in recovery?
Of course.
And like, clients are super quick to jump on that and be like, oh, so you don't truly understand. And so, I'll lead that, but then I teach different groups and do different type of educational processes that speak about my relationship with my mother and things like that, and how the family affected. They're like, oh shit.
He gets it more than any other person would.
I totally relate to that. That's what my kid's going through. So it's kind of having that different perspective, that family perspective, because within this realm we do have counselors and employees that are in recovery, which is amazing, phenomenal. We do have some people that have experienced addiction through family members, and then we just have people that generally want to help. And like, they really haven't been touched, but like, this is their passion. So,
well, and there's certain things that some people do just by working in the field for, God, we have some people that have worked for 30 years in addiction treatment, right? And they just, through that experience and getting to know people and trying different things and seeing what works for people and what doesn't, have grasped it more than most people.
Yeah, it's just kind of as you go type of education overall. I mean, it's great going through and getting the education and getting all that stuff, but I mean, experience is just as important as anything else. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And so real quick before we move on to the kind of the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was where can people find some more information about your work in athletic mental health?
Just Google my name. So no, a big thing is just a little background on that. As I've said before, and I've talked about it, is like, I had my own personal struggles with depression and anxiety and stuff like that. So, a big thing when I got done, I started working with a man named Tim Neal, who is the chairman and on all these different boards for collegiate mental health and concussions and stuff like that. And he was my head athletic trainer at Syracuse, and he was really my main support when I was going through my stuff. So he's really kind of put me in different situations where I can share my story. I've done articles for The Atlantic. I've done articles, been interviewed for different universities and things like that. I've traveled and done some speaking engagements for mental health and sharing my story, kind of giving feedback. So, realistically, if you search my name, throw depression, mental health at the end
Jon
of it.
Meldrum, athletic mental health.
Yeah, I'll pop up. And then, I've done some mentorship with some young athletes in different states through Skyping and stuff like that, just to have some type of, support and things like that. So, yeah, that's my main thing. And then the opportunities that I've got to share my story with in North Point as well.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and you coach at Bora High School.
Yep, coach here in the Valley. So I work with, youth and give that support and that understanding as well. So
nice.
Just giving back. That's what it's all about.
All right. Okay. And then last question, how'd you get into addiction treatment? How'd you find North Point? I'm assuming you're happy in your career choice so far.
I love my career, man. Yeah, this is
all
great.
Those things, all those cliche happy things.
Yeah.
Let's hear how you got into the treatment
I won't
industry.
lie and say there are some days where I'm fried, but for the most part, I'm overall love my career, love my job. Left the prison in 2016, I think it was, and I knew a couple of employees that worked for North Point, and they kind of guided me to kind of getting to this field, and haven't looked back since. So
yeah, well, it's just an easy, like we've talked about already. He's probably said 3 times already. It was an easy transition for you, right? From your growing up childhood and then already working in the prison system, where basically a treatment center most of the time, right? A lot of addict behavior.
A lot of addict behavior not being treated to the best of their ability. That was one thing is when I got into the prison system, I loved teaching, doing programs, things like that. When I was a case manager, I really enjoyed that interaction. Mm-hmm. And so when I got the opportunity to become a counselor, felt like just second nature. Like it wasn't this hard transition of being in front of clients or being in front of the patients or talking to them, because most of the time you have patients that just want to be heard, right? And just want some type of guidance, just a little bit, just a fraction of guidance, because they haven't had that before. And that's the easiest part. It's just going in and talking to people, hearing their story, giving them advice, giving them recommendations. Hopefully they follow it. But for the most part, seeing that shine come back, man, this is the greatest feeling in the world. That's my favorite part about working at North Point, is when they finish their detox and then they become
a human being.
Yeah, and they start clicking, yeah. And then one day you'll be talking to them and you just know that they're there. You see in their eyes. That's one of the best things ever. So
nice, dude. Well, I'll tell you that. First of all, this podcast, lucky to have you. The big Jon Meldrum, North Point's happy to have you, and I'm happy that I get to call you my friend, buddy.
Oh, give me all warm and fuzzies, brother.
That's what it's about.
So, Cooper.
Seamless transition, brother.
Why addiction treatment for you?
Dude, to answer that question, I basically just have to talk about how I got into recovery. So, like I said, I'm clean this November 27, 2010. I don't have a crazy using story. I think I got arrested once. Me and my buddy stole some alcohol and stole his mom's car, and we crashed it, and we spent a couple hours in jail while we waited for our parents to come get us. That's kind of the craziest story. But I went to Ashwood before North Point was ever around. Ashwood is our outpatient, right?
Just a little tiny building.
God, dude, it was out by admin now.
Yeah,
it was literally 3 rooms.
How we've grown.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Which is great. Don't get me wrong. So I was going there. It was me and one other kid in outpatient.
So how old were you when that was going on?
Let's see, 2010. I graduated in 2012, so I was 15, 16.
So what was that like, being in high school, outpatient treatment?
So like I didn't really buy into it for the first like 6 months. I was smoking spice and getting away with it, and still acting like a shit stick to my parents, all that stuff. And eventually I kind of just went to a meeting to get a 12-step meeting to get my parents off my back and the guy that was running the group off my back, and saw some people that were like talking about the crazy shit that went on in my head nonstop. And I was like, oh my God, other people feel this. And I basically asked if I could hang out with them because I thought they were cool because they were drinking coffee past midnight and staying up late. And this dude's like, yeah, just get a book. And unbeknownst to me, I asked him to be my sponsor by doing that. And that was it. And so, yeah, going through, I made I'm kind of blown away. I'm still clean right now. Like, I got into a relationship. I was a junior in high school. I got into a relationship with a girl that was a freshman in college, just discovering alcohol in the middle of my 4th step. It was a disaster.
Well,
bro.
but as a young teenager in high school, these are all normal.
Yeah, but when
when
addiction is added, it just intensifies everything.
But it's hard to be recovery focused and still be in high school and have this guidance, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Within 12-step.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I have nothing to compare it to, right? For me, I wasn't the party animal. I didn't get invited to all the parties or go to all the parties and dance on tables and get, do any of that shit.
I totally did that.
I know. I bet you did. You're still that guy, even though you don't drink. So I was an isolated user. I had a couple of using friends that I used with on a regular basis, and then I used everybody else, and I used them too. But I used everybody else without regard for their feelings or who they were or what they could do or anything like that. And so when I got clean, I kind of just did the same thing. I kind of isolated to a small group of people that weren't partiers. I hung out in a certain teacher's classroom at lunch, and it wasn't even it was weird to me because I didn't do any of that intentionally. It just kind of was okay, well, I'm doing this recovery thing now. It was weird. I really kind of fell bass backwards into working 12 steps into recovery. It was just an unconscious switch that flipped. This is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And when I feel bad or I feel I want to use, I call somebody. So I was really fortunate in that way where it was I didn't get entrenched in my beliefs, my twisted thinking, my addicted thinking too much. And it was really easy for my kind of to brainwash me in a way, right? In a good, my brain needed to be washed.
Yeah.
I was going to Ashwood 3-4 times a week. I was going to a meeting 3-4 times a week on the days that I wasn't going to Ashwood. My parents were always around. It was just easy for me to flip that switch and just this is what I'm doing now, I guess. So
why want to work in this field?
So I got a year clean, and an old employee when we used to have, he ran the adolescent group when Ashwood used to have an adolescent group, right? And he asked me if I could come back and tell my story, and I said, yeah, totally, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, he's like, hey, do you want to come work? I was like, yeah, I guess. And so started 3 days a week going out to that group just as a co-peer facilitator. I would just basically be like, yeah, you should do that. You shouldn't smoke weed. You shouldn't pop pills.
Put your hand out.
Yeah, exactly. Just being yeah, listen to the counselor, dipshit. He has a degree and knows what he's talking about. So, and then that turned into 5 days a week, and then North Point opened, and I became a tech. And then the opportunity became the alumni coordinator came up, and who doesn't want to get paid to take people to Roaring Springs and do video podcasts and hang out,
give swag,
give out hoodies and basically be everybody's buddy and best friend while still actually having a part in their recovery and being able to support them. It was funny. I actually got denied this job. Steve and Bobby were I just don't think you have the time, because I was still doing the Buster thing. For those of you that don't know, I was the Boise State mascot for 4 years. So my last year of school, I was doing full-time school, Buster, and working full-time.
Which was great because you didn't want anybody to know.
I know, but I was a terrible
and everybody
keeping it a
knew
secret.
that you were Buster Bronco.
Yeah, well, what I did was I told everybody that had a loud mouth when I was way too excited about it. So they all told everybody.
Yeah, I told everybody.
Yeah, I know you did. So...
mascot.
So then that was something that changed my life, honestly, in a lot of different ways. But yeah, so that last year I was doing Buster and working full time, and they were like, I just don't think you have the time. And I just told them, like, no, screw that. This is my schedule. This is how I can work it in. I'll get up at 8. I'll go to bed at 8. Like, it was pretty, I'm glad that they gave me the opportunity.
Now look at you.
It's turned into a pretty
traveling,
badass opportunity.
Doing all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Rocking it.
Yeah.
So how do you feel not only your journey within recovery and sobriety, but also having this opportunity to work for this organization has impacted your life?
It's a really good question. I remember the one thing I remember about my interview, because I was so nervous. I was interviewing with president of the company, Bobby, and Steve, and they basically asked me, like, why do you want this job? And I said, I really think this job will allow me to reach my full potential, not only in my career, but in my life. And so far that's been true for me. Like, there's times where, I mean, you talked about, like, I love my career, but I get burnt out sometimes, right?
Yeah.
There's times where I'll end up working 7 days a week, 3 weeks in a row. But like, I have a house, I have a car, I take care of my things. I'm like striving to be better every day. All of a sudden I'm like reading books every day. Like, I read a physical book every day, not like Facebook articles.
You can read.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I learned how to read now. But like, I take time out of my day to improve myself, not only like in work stuff, but in relationships, in interacting with other people, in things that I want to do. This place really like cares about their employees, and I know you know that. So I know, like, if I need a personal day, I can call my boss and be like, hey, like, I'm going to take some time off, and he knows I'm going to make up those hours, no problem. And it's just like, yeah, do it. Make sure, I mean, as long as your stuff's done, like, do what you need to do. And so it's really encouraged me to make myself a priority, especially because in that last year, the first year that I had this job, working full time, going to school full time, and doing Buster, like, I really didn't have a lot of time for myself.
Yeah.
So applying that, and like, honestly, I wasn't working steps, I wasn't going to meetings, and it was starting to get kind of brutal for me. And my boss called me on it. He's like, you need to go to meetings. Like, you're done with school. You need to get back to it. You need to do the balance. You need to do those things. And then no matter what I'm doing, even if I'm not going to meetings, I'm working with people in recovery constantly. So I'm constantly going out of my way to help people. I'm constantly reminded where I can go if I pick up a drink or a drug, all those things.
Yeah.
So
right on, man.
Yeah, buddy. Is that pretty much, is that all you got?
That's all I got for you.
All right.
Man.
That's perfect.
You freaking slayed it.
My
dude.
I appreciate that. That's a high praise coming from Big John Meldrum. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. We are really, really excited to have this platform. We're really, really excited to be doing this. So please make sure you join us next time. As the episodes roll out, we'll be having an episode drop every single 2 weeks. Like I said, this is No Way But North, where we talk about the miracles of recovery and the tools used to achieve them.
Peace.